let's use a ratio to write an equation. When we use a ratio, we can set up a proportion. So let's look at this example. It says you tested a sample of 100 packages from a shipment of 6,000 total packages. You found that 70 of those packages were underweight, and you want to estimate the number of packages that will be underweight. So you test a sample of 100 packages. So if we were going to write a ratio for this, we would do tested sample, and I know that's going to be 100, but let's start with the verbal model. And we could find that there were 70 packages were underweight. So let's put number underweight, and we're talking about in the sample. Now, again, the number underweight was 70, and the total number of tested in our sample was 100. If we're going to, that's a ratio. We're comparing the packages underweight to the total packages. So now let's set up another ratio that has to be equal to. Remember, when we set up proportions, we have to make sure they're lined up horizontally and vertically. Remember, 70 out of 100, we're talking about the number of packages in the sample that were underweight out of the total out of the sample. Now, this bottom here represents total. This represents the tested sample. This right here can represent the total shipment. And if we're talking about the total shipment, then we were going to want the number underweight from the entire shipment. Okay. So, sorry, I'm struggling to make a number sign there. Alright, so if we look at this, we can just fill in the other ratio. Do we know the total number that's underweight? No, that's what we're trying to figure out right here. So we'll call that X. Do we know how many were in the total shipment? Yes, we do, 6,000. So this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call a proportion. It's two ratios equal to each other. So notice that it's lined up. Both the 100 and 6,000 represent the total in the sample, total overall. The 70 and X both represent the number underweight. Number underweight in the sample, the total number away out of our shipment. These two go together because they're both the sample, and these two go together because they're both the actual. Now if we want to solve this, there's lots of different ways you can solve it. If we just treat it like an equation, we can say, what are you solving for? X, what do you have to get rid of? The 600. It's divided by 600, so how do you get rid of it? Well, you multiply by it. 6,000, I'm sorry, I was saying 100. So you multiply each side by 6,000. These cancel out, and we're left with X equals, if you go 6,000 times 70 and divide it by 100, you would get 4,200. So if we test 100 packages and we find 70 of them to be underweight, if we set up a similar ratio and we want to know how many will be underweight out of 6,000, solving that ratio gives us 4,200 packages. Again, it's just an estimate, but it should tell us whether we think it is a good shipment or not. Remember, when we're setting this up, that you can set up ratios equal to each other, and that is called a proportion.